What if the reason good things feel far away is not because life forgot you, but because you have been trying so hard to catch what was never meant to be chased? What if peace, love, healing, and even the answers you have been asking for do not come when you tighten your grip, but when you finally soften and allow yourself to receive? There comes a point in life when the heart gets tired, not weak, not broken, just tired. Tired of trying to make everything happen. Tired of wondering when it will be your turn. Tired of giving so much effort and still feeling like something important is missing. And maybe that is where you are right now. Maybe you have done all the pushing, all the planning, all the hoping, all the trying to hold life together. Maybe you have spent so much time reaching for what you want that you forgot something gentle and powerful. Good things do not always come through force. Many times they come through openness. There is a deep peace in hearing that, because so many people have been living as if life is one long race, one endless struggle, one constant effort to get somewhere better than where they are now. They wake up with pressure in their chest. They carry thoughts in their minds that never fully rest. They tell themselves they need to do more, fix more, control more, become more, prove more. And under all of that effort is often one quiet fear. If I stop chasing, maybe nothing good will happen for me. Maybe I will fall behind. Maybe I will lose my chance. Maybe life will pass me by. But that fear is not the truth. The truth is much softer than that, and also much stronger. The truth is that life often brings the right things when the heart is no longer fighting against itself. You may not notice how much tension you carry until someone reminds you that you are allowed to let go. You are allowed to stop bracing. You are allowed to stop running after every answer. You are allowed to breathe. Just that thought alone can feel like a door opening. Because when people have been living in stress for a long time, even peace can feel unfamiliar at first. Receiving can feel unfamiliar. Trust can feel unfamiliar. Stillness can feel unfamiliar. There are many people who know how to work hard, who know how to survive, who know how to keep going no matter what, but they do not know how to sit quietly and believe that something good can come to them without struggle. They do not know how to rest without guilt. They do not know how to open their hands and say, I am ready to receive. That is why this message matters. It is not just about getting what you want. It is about the way you live while you wait. It is about the energy you carry in your body every day. It is about whether your heart feels tight or open, whether your mind feels crowded or peaceful, whether you move through life with constant pressure or with quiet trust. Because there is a great difference between living in chase and living in receiving. Chase feels heavy. Chase feels urgent. Chase feels like you are always one step behind your own peace. But receiving feels different. Receiving feels like making room. Receiving feels like trusting that not everything has to be dragged into your life by force. receiving feels like becoming available to grace. Many people have never been taught that. They were taught to earn, to fight, to prove, to hustle, to never let down their guard. They were taught that if they wanted something good, they had to go after it with all their strength and never stop. And effort has its place. Action matters, care matters, showing up matters. But effort without peace becomes pressure. Action without trust becomes fear. Movement without inner calm becomes exhaustion. There is a point where pushing stops being helpful and starts closing the heart. There is a point where constant chasing makes it harder to notice the very thing that is trying to find its way to you. Think about how often people miss good things because they are looking too hard in the wrong direction. They are so focused on one outcome, one timeline, one exact form, that they cannot see the quiet ways life is already supporting them. They are so tense about when something will happen that they cannot feel what is happening inside them now. They are so used to believing that everything depends on their effort alone that they leave no room for help, no room for timing, no room for surprise, no room for grace. Their hands are full of control, and because of that, they cannot receive. It is possible that you have been doing that without even knowing it. Not because you are doing anything wrong, but because you have been trying to protect yourself. When someone has been hurt, disappointed, left waiting, or made to feel uncertain, they often try to stay ahead of pain by controlling everything they can. They plan more. They worry more. They hold on tighter. They tell themselves they are being responsible, and in some ways they are. But deep down, they are also afraid. Afraid that if they do know, keep control enough, life will become unsafe. Afraid that if they stop pushing, everything will fall apart. Afraid that ease is not for them. Afraid that if they open too much, they will be let down again. But life is not always asking for more effort. Sometimes life is asking for more trust. Sometimes life is asking for more softness. Sometimes life is asking for a different kind of strength, the strength to stay open without knowing every answer, the strength to breathe in the middle of uncertainty, the strength to believe that what is meant for you does not need to be hunted down with fear. That kind of strength is not loud, but it changes everything. It changes how you wait. It changes how you think. It changes how you feel in your own body. It changes what you notice. It changes what you invite. There is a quiet truth many people need to hear. You do not always have to go looking for every good thing. Some things come when you stop running. Some things come when you heal. Some things come when your energy becomes calm enough to hold them. Some things come when your heart is no longer closed by stress. Some things come when you stop asking life to prove itself every minute and start trusting that goodness can reach you in ways you cannot yet see. This does not mean you do nothing. It means you stop living in inner panic. It means you stop believing that pressure is the same thing as power. It means you stop treating your peace like something you can only have after everything works out. peace must come first. That is what so many people get backwards. They tell themselves they will feel calm when the relationship comes, when the money comes, when the answer comes, when the healing comes, when the future feels certain. But if peace is always waiting on conditions, peace never really arrives. There will always be one more thing to solve, one more worry to carry, one more reason to stay tense. That is why receiving begins now, not later. Receiving begins the moment you allow peace to enter before everything is figured out. Receiving begins the moment you say, I do not need to chase my worth. I do not need to chase my breath. I do not need to chase every answer. I can make room for good now. When people hear that, something inside them often softens because they have been so hungry for permission. Permission to rest. Permission to stop proving. Permission to stop running after every sign of love and success as if life were withholding them on purpose. Permission to believe that they are not forgotten. Permission to believe that good things can come closer when they stop living in fear. So let this be that permission. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to unclench. You are allowed to step out of the feeling that everything depends on your constant effort. You are allowed to believe that something beautiful can find you. Even now, as these words settle into your heart, you may notice where you have been tired. You may notice the places in your life where you have been chasing too hard. Maybe you have been chasing peace by overthinking. Maybe you have been chasing love by trying to be everything for everyone. Maybe you have been chasing security by controlling every detail. Maybe you have been chasing healing by judging yourself every time you feel weak. Maybe you have been chasing answers by filling every quiet moment with worry. And maybe, just maybe, life is asking you to try something different. Not more force, not more fear. Something softer, something wiser, something that feels like opening instead of pushing. There is a great difference between saying, I must make life give this to me, and saying, I am becoming ready to receive what belongs to me. The first comes from fear. The second comes from trust. The first tightens the body. The second relaxes it. The first makes time feel like an enemy. The second allows time to become part of the process. The first tells you that you are never doing enough. The second reminds you that your value is not measured by how hard you chase. When you shift from chase to receiving, life feels different inside you before it changes around you. That inner change matters. In fact, it matters more than most people realize, because everything begins there. The way you speak to yourself, the way you breathe through uncertainty, the way you hold your own worth, the way you carry hope, the way you meet delay, the way you handle not knowing. These things shape your life. Not just what you do, but how you do it. Not just what you want, but the energy with which you reach for it. A heart full of panic cannot truly rest in abundance. A mind full of pressure cannot easily recognize grace. A body full of fear cannot always hold peace. So the shift must begin within. It begins with the choice to stop making struggle your only language. It begins with the choice to believe that life may be kinder than your fear says it is. This does not mean there have not been hard things. It does not mean your pain is not real. It does not mean your waiting has been easy. It does not mean you should pretend to be peaceful when you are hurting. It simply means that your hurt does not have to become your home. Your waiting does not have to become your identity. Your fear does not have to become your guide. You can feel what you feel and still begin to open. You can be tired and still trust a little. You can be uncertain and still receive peace. You can be healing and still believe that good is making its way toward you. Sometimes, all the heart needs is one true sentence to begin changing direction. Something simple, something clear, something it can hold when the mind gets loud. And maybe that sentence is this: good things always find their way to me when I stop chasing and start receiving. Say that slowly inside yourself, not as a wish, but as a new way of standing in your life. Good things always find their way to me when I stop chasing and start receiving. Feel how different that is from the voice of panic. Feel how different that is from the voice that says you are late, forgotten, or not enough. This new truth does not ask you to perform. It asks you to open. It asks you to believe that you are not cut off from grace. What would change in your life if you truly believed that? What would change in the way you woke up in the morning? What would change in the way you spoke to yourself at night? What would change in the way you responded to delays, silence, and the unknown? What would change in your body if you no longer felt like you had to chase every good thing down? Perhaps your shoulders would soften. Perhaps your breath would deepen. Perhaps your thoughts would slow. Perhaps your heart would no longer feel like it had to beg life for what it needs. Perhaps you would begin to feel supported again. That support is not something you earn through exhaustion. It is something you remember. Life supports the flower without asking it to prove its worth. Life supports the sunrise without asking it to fight for its place. Life supports the breath that enters your body every moment without asking whether you deserve it. There is something in life that knows how to carry, how to guide, how to provide, how to open doors in quiet ways. But to notice that support, you must begin to soften your fear. You must begin to loosen the grip of constant effort. You must begin to trust that what belongs to you does not need to be chased in panic. And so here, in this first moment, let the heart hear what it may have needed for a long time. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not failing because you are tired. You are not weak because you long for peace. You are not wrong for wanting ease. You are not asking for too much when you ask life to meet you gently. You are allowed to receive. You are allowed to believe that good can find you. You are allowed to stop living as if struggle is the only path. You are allowed to begin again, not by doing more, but by opening more. Let this be the beginning of that opening. Let this be the moment when the pressure starts to leave your chest. Let this be the moment when you stop treating yourself like someone who must always prove their right to receive. Let this be the moment when you say, maybe I do not need to chase so hard. Maybe peace can come closer. Maybe love can come closer. Maybe healing can come closer. Maybe the life meant for me does not need to be dragged into place. Maybe it can find its way to me as I become ready to receive it. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is not giving up. That is a new kind of trust. And from that trust, something beautiful begins. The trouble begins when people believe that chasing is the only way anything good can happen. They wake up already running inside their own minds. They chase answers before they even get out of bed. They chase approval in conversations. They chase success through pressure. They chase love by trying to become more pleasing, more useful, more needed. They chase peace by trying to control every possible outcome. And because they are always reaching, always pushing, always trying to make life happen faster, they never fully arrive in the place where receiving becomes possible. Their whole energy says, I do not have it. I might lose it. I must go after it now. That is the energy of lack. That is the energy of fear. And that energy creates a closed space inside the heart. At first, chasing can look like effort, like ambition, like strength. From the outside, it may even seem admirable. A person looks determined. They look focused. They look like they are trying to improve their life. And sometimes they are. But inside, something else may be happening. Inside, there may be exhaustion, panic, self-doubt, and the painful feeling that no matter how much they do, they are never quite there. That is because chasing is not just action. It is action driven by inner pressure. It is movement mixed with fear. It is trying to force timing. It is trying to earn what the heart believes it may not naturally receive. That is why chasing blocks receiving. It does not block it because effort is bad. It blocks it because the emotional state behind the effort is often tight, fearful, and resistant. When a person is chasing, they are usually sending a message to life without even knowing it. The message is this: I do not trust that good can come to me. I do not trust that I am enough without proving. I do not trust timing. I do not trust life. I do not trust that what belongs to me can find me. So I must run after it. I must force it. I must stay tense. I must never stop. That message shapes the body. It shapes the breath. It shapes the thoughts. It shapes what the person notices. It shapes the way they respond to every delay. And often, it keeps them from feeling the very support they are asking for. Imagine trying to receive a gift while your hands are clenched shut. The gift may be there, right in front of you, but your hands are too tight to hold it. That is what chasing does to the heart. It closes it, not on purpose, but out of fear. The heart becomes so busy trying to make sure nothing is lost that it cannot soften enough to receive what is already coming. There is no space. There is no stillness. There is no quiet trust. And without that openness, even good things can feel like they are passing by. Not always because they are absent, but because the person is too deep in fear to receive them fully. This shows up in many ways. A person may chase love by overgiving, over-explaining, over-trying, hoping that if they do enough they will be chosen. But real love is not held together by panic. A person may chase money by living in constant stress, never letting themselves rest, believing that worth comes only through endless pressure. But abundance cannot always stay in a body that never feels safe. A person may chase healing by becoming harsh with themselves, upset every time they do not improve fast enough, impatient with every slow step. But healing cannot bloom in the soil of self-attack. A person may chase answers by overthinking every detail, replaying every possibility, trying to solve tomorrow before today is even over. But clarity often comes when the mind stops shouting long enough to listen. The problem is not desire. Desire is natural. Wanting peace, love, health, purpose, and joy is not wrong. The problem is when desire becomes fear. The problem is when longing turns into desperation. The problem is when the need for a result becomes stronger than the ability to stay grounded. That is when chasing begins to take over. And when chasing takes over, life starts to feel like a struggle instead of a relationship. Everything becomes something to grab. Everything becomes something to control. Everything becomes proof of whether you are safe or not. That is a painful way to live. It leaves the nervous system tired. It leaves the mind crowded. It leaves the heart unsure of its own worth. Many people have lived this way for so long that they do not even realize it is what they are doing. They think they are just being careful. They think they are just being responsible. They think they are just trying their best. And again, there is nothing wrong with effort. But effort and inner panic are not the same thing. Responsibility and over-control are not the same thing. Care and fear are not the same thing. The body knows the difference. The heart knows the difference. Deep inside, you know the difference too. You can feel when you are acting from grounded care and when you are acting from fear that says, if I stop holding this so tightly, I will lose everything. That belief creates so much suffering. It tells people that life is unsafe unless they stay tense. It tells them that rest is dangerous. It tells them that softness means weakness. It tells them that if they stop chasing for even a moment, something important will disappear. So they keep going. They keep proving. They keep pushing. They keep carrying more than they need to carry. And all the while, their spirit grows tired. Their joy becomes harder to feel. Their peace becomes something they keep postponing. Their body becomes a place of strain instead of ease. They forget what it feels like to simply trust that something good can come without being forced. It is important to understand that chasing often comes from pain, not from failure. It often comes from old disappointment, old fear, old patterns, old messages learned very early in life. Maybe someone grew up feeling that love had to be earned. Maybe someone learned that being still was lazy and that worth came only through constant effort. Maybe someone was praised only when they achieved, produced, or performed. Maybe someone learned to expect loss, so now they try to control everything to stay ahead of hurt. These patterns become normal after a while. A person may not even question them. They simply live inside them. They assume that pressure is normal. They assume that worry is helpful. They assume that peace must wait. But those assumptions can be questioned. In fact, they must be questioned if a person wants to move from struggle into receiving. Because receiving is not just about getting. It is about becoming open enough to notice, hold, and trust what is already moving toward you. If your whole inner world is built on fear, even blessings can feel unfamiliar. Even support can feel suspicious. Even rest can feel uncomfortable. That is why some people say they want peace, but feel restless when it comes close. They say they want love, but do not trust it when it arrives. They say they want healing, but become impatient with the process. They say they want help, but feel guilty receiving it. The heart wants goodness, but the nervous system has been trained for chase. That training can be changed, but first, it must be seen. First, you have to notice the cost of chasing. The cost is not only outer exhaustion, it is inner disconnection. It is living with the message that you can only relax once life proves itself. It is spending so much energy trying to force outcomes that you lose touch with your own peace. It is missing the sweetness of the present because your mind is always reaching ahead. It is forgetting that your worth is not measured by how hard you grip. It is forgetting that the deepest things often do not respond to pressure. Love does not grow well under panic. Healing does not deepen well under self-hate. Peace does not arrive through control. Wisdom does not speak clearly when fear is shouting over it. When people chase, they often think they are moving closer to what they want, but emotionally, they may be moving farther away from the state needed to receive it. That is the deeper problem. The more frantic the energy, the more blocked the heart becomes. The more desperate the reaching, the less space there is for calm trust. The more pressure a person puts on the outcome, the more their life becomes tied to fear. This is why so many people can get what they thought they wanted and still not feel at peace. Because chasing does not teach peace. It teaches strain. It teaches the body to stay on edge. It teaches the mind to look for the next thing to worry about. It teaches the heart that safety is always somewhere else. And yet, safety must begin within. Not perfect safety, not total certainty, but enough inner trust that you no longer need to chase your life in panic. Enough softness to breathe through delay. Enough worth to believe that you do not need to beg for what belongs to you. Enough peace to stop treating every unknown as a threat. That shift changes everything. But before it happens, there is often a moment of deep honesty. A moment when the soul says, I cannot keep living like this. I cannot keep calling fear responsibility. I cannot keep calling pressure power. I cannot keep chasing what leaves me empty. I want another way. That is a holy moment, because that is the beginning of wisdom. That is the point where a person starts to understand that chasing is not helping as much as they thought it was. It may have helped them survive. It may have helped them function. It may have helped them feel temporarily in control, but it has not brought the deep peace they seek. It has not made the heart feel safe. It has not opened the inner door to receiving. It has not taught them how to live with trust. So a new question begins to rise. What if I stop forcing if I stop reaching from fear? What if I stop making my peace wait on results? What if good does not need my panic in order to find me? That question opens space. It does not solve everything at once, but it changes the direction of energy. Instead of asking, how can I make this happen faster? The heart starts asking, how can I become more open? Instead of asking, what more must I do to deserve this? The heart asks, what if I am already worthy to receive? Instead of asking, why is this taking so long? The heart asks, what if something is preparing me as it comes? Instead of asking, how do I control every detail? The heart asks, what would trust feel like right here? These are not weak questions. They are strong questions. They move a person from fear into awareness. They move a person from panic into presence. The truth is, chasing keeps the mind focused on absence. It keeps telling you what is not here yet. It keeps measuring your life by what is missing. It keeps you leaning into the future so hard that you cannot feel the support that exists right now. That support may look small at first. A quiet breath, a moment of calm, a kind word, a new thought, a little space in the chest, a sense that maybe you do not need to carry everything alone. These things matter. They are signs that the heart is beginning to open. They are signs that receiving is becoming possible. When you stop chasing, you do not become passive. You become present. You stop acting from panic and begin acting from peace. You stop reaching from lack and begin moving from trust. You stop believing that your fear is the engine of all good things. That is a powerful shift. It changes the quality of every step you take. It changes how you listen. It changes how you choose. It changes how you wait. It changes how you pray. It changes how you care for yourself. And because your energy changes, your experience of life changes too. But it starts by seeing clearly that chasing has not been the answer. It starts by admitting that pressure has not brought the peace you hoped it would. It starts by noticing how often the thing blocking your receiving is not the world outside you, but the tension inside you. It starts by becoming honest about how heavy it feels to always be in pursuit. And then, gently, kindly, without blame, it starts by choosing another way, a softer way, a more open way, a way that says, I can still care deeply without living in chase. I can still desire without becoming desperate. I can still move forward without abandoning my peace. That is the doorway. That is where receiving begins. The core spiritual truth is simple, but it changes everything once it reaches the heart. What is meant for you can find you. Good things are not always brought into your life by force. Many times they arrive when you become open enough to receive them. This is not about giving up on life. It is about stepping out of fear and into trust. It is about understanding that there is a deeper rhythm moving through life, one that is wiser than panic, gentler than pressure, and more faithful than Tao, a voice of doubt. When you stop chasing and start receiving, you begin to live in harmony with that rhythm. And life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a flow. This truth is deeply comforting because it lifts a great burden from the heart. So many people are carrying the belief that they must drag every blessing into place by themselves. They believe that if they do not force enough, nothing good will happen. They believe that love must be chased, peace must be earned through suffering, and abundance must be held together by endless stress. But that belief is not the deepest truth. The deeper truth is that life responds to openness. Life responds to alignment. Life responds to the quiet state of a heart that is no longer fighting itself every moment. When you become open, you do not lose power. You return to it. Receiving is not laziness. Receiving is not weakness. Receiving is not waiting helplessly for something to save you. Receiving is a spiritual state. It is an inner posture of trust. It is the choice to unclench. It is the choice to stop treating every moment of uncertainty like an emergency. It is the choice to believe that you do not have to live in constant strain in order to be guided. Receiving says, I am available for good. I am no longer closing my heart with fear. I am no longer making my body a home for pressure. I am willing to let life support me. That willingness changes the whole inner world. It softens the breath. It loosens the jaw. It eases the tightness in the chest. It creates space in the mind where there used to be noise. And in that space, something begins to happen. You hear more clearly. You see more clearly. You feel more clearly. You begin to notice that life is not always working against you. You begin to notice that some delays protect you, some endings redirect you, some closed doors free you, and some quiet moments are preparing you. The heart that is always chasing cannot easily see this. But the heart that is receiving starts to understand that life may be wiser than the timeline fear has created. Trust is part of this spiritual truth. Not blind trust that denies pain, and not false positivity that pretends everything feels easy. Real trust is something deeper. Real trust says, even if I do not see the whole path yet, I can still breathe here. Real trust says, I do not need to know every answer in order to stay open. Real trust says, I will not let fear close what life is trying to open in me. Real trust says, I believe that what belongs to me can reach me without destroying my peace on the way. That is the beginning of receiving. That is the moment the heart steps out of survival and into relationship with life again. Many people think they are being strong when they hold on tighter. But there is a different kind of strength in release. There is strength in saying, I no longer need to force what fear told me had to be controlled. There is strength in saying, I am willing to let timing have wisdom. There is strength in saying, I can care deeply without collapsing into desperation. There is strength in saying, I choose peace, even before the outer result appears. This strength is quiet, but it is powerful. It is the kind of strength that heals the nervous system. It is the kind of strength that allows joy back into the body. It is the kind of strength that makes room for grace. Grace needs room. That is part of the spiritual truth, too. Goodness often enters where there is space. Clarity often enters where there is stillness. Guidance often enters where there is listening. Love often deepens where there is openness. But when the heart is crowded with fear, when the mind is full of urgency, when the body is living in constant pressure, there is little room left for grace to land. This is not punishment. It is simply the nature of energy. A full and frightened inner world struggles to receive what a calm and open inner world can hold. That is why peace matters so much. Peace is not just a reward after life gets easier. Peace is what prepares you to receive life differently. You might think of it this way. The sun does not need to be chased into the sky. It rises in its own time. A flower does not scream itself open. It opens when the conditions are right. Water does not force itself to flow. It moves according to its nature. There is a deep wisdom in nature, and that wisdom is also in you. There is a part of you that already knows how to receive. There is a part of you that knows how to soften when it is safe. There is a part of you that knows life is not meant to be one endless act of grasping. But that part may have been covered over by years of pressure, fear, and the belief that struggle is the only path. The spiritual truth does not create that wise part in you. It awakens it, and once it awakens, life begins to feel different. Not always easier at once, but deeper, more grounded, more spacious. You still care about your dreams. You still take steps. You still show up. But now you do not show up from panic. You show up from trust. You no longer carry the heavy belief that every good thing depends on your fear. You begin to understand that peace is part of the path, not something waiting at the end of it. You begin to believe that the life meant for you does not need to be chased with desperation. You begin to believe that as you open, the right things can come closer. This is where the title becomes a living truth. Good things always find their way to you. Not always in the form the mind expected, not always on the exact day the ego demanded, not always through the path fear planned. But they do find their way. Love finds its way. Clarity finds its way. Healing finds its way. The next right step finds its way. The strength you need finds its way. The peace you long for finds its way. Sometimes it comes through a quiet change inside you. Sometimes it comes through an ending that clears the path. Sometimes it comes through a delay that protects your timing. Sometimes it comes through one new thought that changes how you meet your life. But it comes. Good has its own movement. It has its own intelligence. It is not always absent simply because it is not yet visible. That is why spiritual receiving is so important. It is not just about outer blessings. It is about becoming someone who can notice, hold, trust, and welcome what is already being prepared. It is about no longer rejecting peace while asking for help. It is about no longer living in such deep tension that even support feels hard to accept. It is about understanding that when you relax your grip on control, you are not losing your life. You are making space for it to breathe. You are making space for a deeper order than fear can understand. You are making space for the unseen work that life does quietly, behind the noise of your worry. This truth also frees you from the painful idea that you have somehow missed your chance. Many people live with that fear. They think they are too late, too damaged, too tired, too far behind, too old, too uncertain, too imperfect. They think the door closed because they did not chase hard enough or because they failed in some way. But life is not so small. Grace is not so limited. The spiritual path is not a race in which only the fastest win. The right things can still find you. The healing you need can still find you. The peace you have postponed can still find you. The next beginning can still find you. Receiving starts when you stop telling yourself that the story is over just because the old way stopped working. The old way may need to stop working. That itself can be grace. Sometimes the reason chasing becomes so exhausting is because your soul is asking for a new path. A calmer path, a truer path. A path where worth is not tied to struggle. A path where peace is not always delayed. A path where action grows out of clarity instead of panic. a path where you no longer need to abandon yourself in order to get somewhere. That path may feel unfamiliar at first because fear is loud and trust is quiet. But the quietness of trust is not emptiness, it is depth. It is the deeper current beneath the surface noise. This is why stillness is powerful. Stillness is not empty space. Stillness is where the heart remembers what fear made it forget. In stillness, you begin to hear the truth again. You begin to hear that you are not cut off from good. You begin to hear that your breath is enough for this moment. You begin to hear that life is not demanding that you solve everything at once. You begin to hear that your peace matters. You begin to hear that you can stop holding yourself so hard. And when that truth enters, receiving becomes possible because the heart is no longer crowded with panic. It becomes a place where something beautiful can land. You may not fully believe this truth at first, and that is all right. Spiritual truth often enters gently. It enters through repetition, through reflection, through the slow healing of the body and mind. At first, you may only be willing to consider it. You may only be willing to say, "What if good can find me?" That willingness is enough to begin. You do not have to become perfectly trusting overnight. You do not have to stop feeling fear all at once. You only have to create a little room for peace, a little room for a knee while you thought, a little room for the possibility that life is not against you, a little room for grace. And in that room, a new sentence can grow, a sentence you return to when the mind wants to chase again. A sentence that brings you back to the core spiritual truth. It can be as simple as this: what is meant for me can find me. Or this: I do not need to chase what belongs to me. Or this: I am open to receive the good that is already making its way toward me. These are not empty phrases. They are spiritual instructions. They teach the heart a new posture. They teach the body a new feeling. They teach the mind a new direction. They begin to loosen old fear and make space for new peace. The more you live inside this truth, the more you understand that receiving is sacred. It is sacred because it says yes to life without needing to control every detail. It is sacred because it honors timing without collapsing into helplessness. It is sacred because it welcomes support. It is sacred because it softens the old belief that you must suffer your way into worth. It is sacred because it lets the heart become a place of trust again. And when the heart becomes that place, good things do not feel so far away. They begin to feel possible. They begin to feel near. They begin to feel natural. So let the spiritual truth settle deeply now. You do not need to chase every blessing. You do not need to force every answer. You do not need to live in constant pressure to deserve peace. What is meant for you can find you. Good things always find their way to you when you stop closing your heart with fear and start opening it with trust. Life is not asking you to become harder. It is asking you to become more open. It is asking you to become more peaceful inside your own being. It is asking you to let receiving be part of your path. And the moment you begin to do that, the whole story starts to change. One of the deepest reasons people struggle to receive is not because life has no good for them, but because their inner world has become too tight to hold it. The heart may say it wants peace, love, healing, joy, or abundance, but the mind may still be full of doubt. The body may still be carrying fear. The spirit may still be expecting disappointment. And when all of that is happening at once, a person can stand in front of a blessing and still not fully receive it. Not because they are ungrateful, not because they are cursed, but because they have been living in survival for so long that openness feels harder than struggle. Many people do not know how much they are resisting good until they begin to look honestly at what is happening inside them. They may say they want love, but when love comes close, they question it. They may say they want peace, but when life slows down, they become restless. They may say they want support, but when someone offers help, they feel uncomfortable, guilty, or unsure. They may say they want abundance, but deep down, they do not believe they deserve it. This is what makes receiving difficult. The problem is not always outside. So often, the block is inside. It is the quiet wall made of the fear, doubt, old pain, and the need to control. Fear is one of the biggest reasons people struggle to receive. Fear tells the heart that if something feels good, it may not last. Fear tells the mind to stay alert because disappointment could be right around the corner. Fear tells the body to remain tense just in case life turns suddenly. So even when something beautiful begins to enter, fear does not relax. It does not say, "Thank you, I am ready." It says, "What if this goes wrong? What if this is not real? What if I lose it? What if I trust and get hurt again?" This is why so many people live with one foot near the door of every good thing. They want it, but they do not feel safe enough to stay open to it. Doubt works in a similar way. Doubt whispers quietly, but it shapes so much. It says maybe this is for other people, not for me. It says maybe I am too late. It says maybe good things happen for others more easily because they are different, stronger, smarter, more worthy. Doubt rarely sounds dramatic. Many times it sounds normal, even reasonable, but it closes the heart just the same. A person may not even realize how often they are speaking doubt into their own life. They may say small things like nothing ever works out for me, or I always miss my chance, or I probably should not expect too much. These thoughts may seem small, but repeated often enough, they become a way of living. They become a message the whole body starts to believe. Then there is overthinking. Overthinking makes receiving almost impossible because it keeps the mind so busy searching for danger that it cannot rest in trust. When a person overthinks, they are rarely in the present moment. They are in the next problem, the next fear, the next possible mistake, the next thing that could go wrong. Their mind keeps moving because it believes movement is safety. It believes that if it can think hard enough, plan carefully enough, and replay enough possibilities, it can control life. But life does not open because the mind has worried about it enough. In fact, the more a person overthinks, the more crowded the inner world becomes. And a crowded inner world has a hard time receiving anything clearly. Feeling unworthy is another deep block to receiving. This one touches many lives in quiet and painful ways. A person may say they want love, but deep down, they do not feel lovable. A person may pray for healing, but deep down, they feel they have failed too much to deserve peace. A person may long for something beautiful, but deep down, they still carry the old belief that they are not enough. They may have learned this early in life. Perhaps they were criticized often. Perhaps they had to earn praise. Perhaps they grew up feeling unseen. Perhaps they were taught, directly or indirectly, that their value depended on performance, appearance, or pleasing others. These beliefs do not disappear just because someone grows older. They often stay quietly in the background, shaping how a person receives everything. When worth feels shaky, receiving feels dangerous. Because to receive, fully, a person must be willing to say yes to goodness. They must be willing to believe, even gently, that peace can belong to them too. They must be willing to stop arguing with every blessing. But when unworthiness is still active, the heart pulls back. It says, "This is too much for me." It says, "I have not earned this yet." It says, "Maybe later, maybe when I am better, maybe when I prove myself more." And so good things get delayed, not always by life itself, but by the inner belief that says, "I am not ready to hold them." The need to control is another reason people struggle to receive. Control often comes from a place that makes sense. It usually begins as a way to stay safe. If someone has known uncertainty, loss, chaos, disappointment, or pain, they may begin to control everything they can. They may control conversations, schedules, outcomes, emotions, appearances, and the timing of everything around them. They may not even call it control. They may call it being prepared. They may call it being smart. They may call it being responsible. And sometimes it is. But when control becomes a way of calming deep fear, it begins to harden the heart. It becomes difficult to let life move naturally. It becomes difficult to trust. It becomes difficult to receive anything that does not arrive exactly the way the mind planned. That is why control and receiving do not live easily in the same space. Receiving requires openness. Control wants guarantees. Receiving says, "I am willing." Control says, "I must know first." Receiving says, "I trust what is unfolding." Control says, "I will only relax once I am certain." Receiving opens the hands. Control tightens them. When people are stuck in control, they often do not realize how much energy it takes. They are tired, but they cannot stop. They are exhausted, but they do not know how to rest. They want support, but they are afraid to let go. And because they are holding so tightly, They miss the quiet ways life is trying to help them. There is also the habit of waiting for the worst. Many people struggle to receive because they have trained themselves to expect disappointment before good can fully arrive. Perhaps life has hurt them before. Perhaps they got their hopes up and were let down. Perhaps they trusted too quickly in the past. Now they think staying guarded will protect them. So they do not let themselves fully hope. They do not let themselves fully rest. They do not let themselves believe that something kind can happen without a hidden cost. They tell themselves they are being realistic, but often they are simply protecting old pain, and that protection becomes a wall. It keeps out not only hurt, but also healing. Resistance can hide in very small daily moments. Someone says something kind, and the person brushes it away. An opportunity appears, and they immediately think of reasons it will not work. A quiet day arrives, and they become uncomfortable because they are used to stress. Peace comes close, and they start looking for the problem. This is how deeply the habit of resistance can live in a person. It does not always look dramatic. Often it looks male. Often it looks like tension that has been there for so long it feels like personality, but it is not the deepest truth of who they are. It is a pattern, and patterns can change. There is another reason people struggle to receive, and it is this: they are too used to giving from emptiness. They know how to pour out, but not how to take in. They know how to care for others, but not how to let themselves be cared for. They know how to be strong for everyone else, but not how to soften in their own private moments. They may have spent years being the one who keeps going, the one who shows up, the one who carries others, the one who stays responsible. Over time, they begin to believe that their role is always to give, to hold, to solve, to support. They stop knowing how to receive without guilt. This happens often with kind-hearted people. They are not closed because they do not care. They are closed because they have forgotten that they too are allowed to be held. They too are allowed to be supported. They too are allowed to stop and say, I need peace. I need rest. I need something good to reach me. The heart gets tired when it is always pouring out and never letting anything in. And yet so many people keep living this way because receiving feels unfamiliar. It feels selfish. It feels undeserved. But receiving is not selfish. It is part of balance. It is part of healing. It is part of learning that life is meant to move both ways, not only out from you, but also into you. Sometimes people struggle to receive because they are attached to one exact picture of how good should look. They want peace, but only if it comes in one specific form. They want love, but only if it comes from one specific person. They want success, but only if it arrives by one specific path. They want healing, but only if it happens by one specific timeline. This attachment creates tension, because life may be trying to bring them something even better, something more fitting, something more aligned, but they are so locked onto one image that they cannot see it. Their eyes are fixed on one door, while another door is quietly opening nearby. This does not mean they should stop caring about what they desire. It means they may need to hold their desires more gently. They may need to say this or something better. They may need to open beyond their own fear-based ideas of what life is supposed to do. Because often the struggle to receive is not just fear of pain. It is also fear of the unknown. It is fear that if life does not unfold exactly as expected, then all will be lost. But life is larger than the mind's smallest plan, and goodness does not always arrive in the shape fear demanded. Another hidden block is self-criticism. A person who is always hard on themselves often struggles to receive because their inner world has become harsh. The voice inside them is always correcting, blaming, pushing, and finding fault. Even when something goes well, they do not let themselves enjoy it. Even when progress is happening, they focus on what is still missing. Even when peace is trying to enter, they keep themselves tense with criticism. This kind of inner voice closes the heart. It makes the person feel like life is something to survive, not something to receive. It teaches them that they must constantly improve before they are allowed to rest. But the truth is, self-criticism does not prepare the heart to receive. It only prepares the body to stay on guard. A heart that hears harshness all day does not feel safe enough to open. A nervous system that is constantly being pushed inwardly does not know how to relax into trust. That is why kindness matters so deeply. Not fake kindness, not forced sweetness, real kindness. The kind that says, I see your fear, but I do not need to attack you for it. The kind that says, you are learning. The kind that says, you are safe enough to soften a little. The kind that says, you do not have to become perfect before you receive peace. If any of this feels familiar, it does not mean something is wrong with you. It means something inside you is asking to be healed. It means the old patterns that once helped you survive may no longer be helping you live. It means the heart is ready for a softer way. It means there is wisdom rising inside you, asking you to stop confusing tension with safety. Because safety is not always found in gripping harder. Very often, safety is found in learning that you can remain open and still be okay. The beautiful truth is that these blocks are not your identity. Fear is not your identity. Doubt is not your identity. Overthinking is not your identity. Unworthiness is not your identity. Control is not your identity. These are patterns, protections, habits, and old stories. They may have lived in you for a long time, but they are not the deepest truth of who you are. Underneath all of that, there is still a part of you that knows how to trust. There is still a part of you that wants to soften. There is still a part of you that remembers life can be kind. That part may be quiet right now, but it is there. And the moment you begin to see these blocks clearly, without shame, without blame, without judging yourself for having them, something starts to change. Awareness begins to loosen what fear was holding tightly. Compassion begins to soften what pressure kept hard. Truth begins to shine light into places where resistance was hiding. You do not need to fix all of this at once. You only need to begin noticing. You only need to begin saying, "This is where I close. This is where I fear. This is where I doubt. This is where I do not yet feel safe to receive." That honesty is powerful. That honesty is healing. That honesty opens the next door. Because once you see the block, you can stop living inside it without knowing. Once you see the pattern, you can gently choose another response. Once you see that your struggle is not because life forgot you, but because fear has been standing guard at the doorway, you can begin to speak differently to yourself. You can begin to breathe differently. You can begin to expect differently. You can begin to soften in the places that have been hardest for the longest time. That is how receiving begins. Not through force, not through pretending, through seeing the truth with gentleness and saying, "I am ready to open a little more than I did before." There comes a quiet turning point in a person's life when they realize that force is no longer helping them. They may not have words for it right away, but they feel it. They feel tired of pushing, tired of carrying so much pressure, tired of trying to solve everything through worry, through effort, through overthinking, through control. They begin to understand that the old way may have helped them survive, but it is not bringing them peace. And in that moment, something new becomes possible. That moment is the shift from force to faith. Force says, "I must make everything happen now." Faith says, "I can trust that what is meant for me is still moving, even when I cannot see it all yet." Force says, "Push harder." Faith says, "Breathe deeper." Force says, "If I do not control this, I will lose it." Faith says, "What belongs to me does not need fear to hold it together." Force is tight. Faith is open. Force lives in panic. Faith lives in trust. This shift changes everything. Not because it removes every challenge, but because it changes the energy with which you meet your life. Many people think faith means doing nothing, but that is not true. Faith does not mean becoming passive. Faith means letting your actions rise from peace instead of fear. It means you still move, but you move differently. You still care, but you care without inner panic. You still take steps, but your steps are no longer rushed by the voice that says everything will fall apart if you do not force it. Faith changes the inside first. It changes how your body feels while you act. It changes how your heart waits. It changes how your mind speaks when life is not moving on your schedule. This shift often begins with a very simple realization. I cannot heal my life by fighting it every moment. I cannot receive peace while treating pressure as my only way forward. I cannot hear guidance while my mind is screaming. I cannot feel supported while I refuse to let myself soften. These are deep realizations. They are not small. Because once a person sees this clearly, it becomes harder to go back to the old way without noticing the cost. The old way starts to feel heavier. The strain becomes more visible. the constant pushing begins to lose its power, and then, very gently, faith begins to rise. Faith often begins as willingness before it becomes certainty. A person may not wake up one day full of complete trust. More often, they begin with one soft thought. Maybe I do not have to hold this so tightly. Maybe I can stop trying to force what is not ready. Maybe there is more happening than I can see right now. Maybe I can let life support me a little. That small willingness matters. It opens a door. It tells the heart that another way is possible. It tells the body that it may not have to stay tense forever. It tells the mind that not every unknown eye is a threat. The shift from force to faith is really a shift from fear-based living to trust-based living. Fear-based living says the world is always one step away from going wrong, so I must stay on alert. Trust-based living says life may not always be easy, but I do not need to meet every moment with panic. Fear-based living says everything depends on my effort alone. Trust-based living says I have a part to play, but I am not carrying the whole universe on my shoulders. Fear-based living says I cannot relax until all is certain. Trust-based living says I can choose peace while things are still unfolding. This is a spiritual shift, but it is also a physical one. The body feels the difference between force and faith. Force creates tight shoulders, shallow breathing, racing thoughts, restless sleep, and a nervous system that is always prepared for danger. Faith creates a different atmosphere inside. The breath becomes slower, the chest becomes softer, the mind becomes clearer. The body no longer feels like it is running a race it never agreed to. This is why faith is not only an idea, it is an experience. It is something you feel in your whole being when you stop pushing against life and begin to rest in it more deeply. At first, that may feel strange. A person who has spent years forcing may feel uncomfortable when they start to choose trust. Their mind may ask, am I doing enough? Should I be worried more? Should I be trying harder? Should I be controlling this better? That is normal. The old pattern does not disappear all at once. It will try to pull you back. It will tell you that peace is dangerous, that softness is weakness, that resting means falling behind. But those are the old voices. Those are the voices of fear. They are loud because they are familiar, not because they are true. Faith has a quieter voice. It says, pause. It says, breathe. It says, do not leave yourself just because life feels uncertain. It says, the answer does not always come from more pressure. It says, what if the next right step comes more clearly when you stop forcing? This voice does not yell. It does not rush you. It simply invites you to stay rooted. It invites you to trust the process more than the panic. It invites you to remember that you are not alone in the unfolding of your life. One of the hardest things for many people is letting go of the idea that struggle proves value. They have been taught that if something matters, it must be hard. If something is good, they must suffer for it. If something beautiful is coming, they must earn it through stress. So when faith begins to offer a gentler path, they do not fully trust it. It feels too soft, too easy, too unfamiliar. But the truth is, peace is not weakness, ease is not failure, calm is not laziness. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop making your life harder than it needs to be. Faith allows you to stop measuring your worth by how much pressure you can survive. It allows you to begin measuring your life by something deeper: alignment, peace, clarity, inner truth. When you move from force to faith, you stop asking how much can I push, and you start asking what feels true, what feels open, what feels grounded, what feels guided. That changes the quality of your choices. It changes the people you allow close. It changes how you respond to silence. It changes how you interpret delay. It changes what you call failure. And perhaps most importantly, it changes how you treat yourself while life is still unfolding. There is great healing in no longer treating every pause as a problem. Force hates pauses. Force sees every delay as danger, every silence as loss, every still moment as wasted time. Faith sees something else. Faith says, maybe this pause is helping me. Maybe this silence is teaching me. Maybe this delay is protecting me. Maybe what feels slow is actually sacred. This does not mean you must enjoy every waiting season. It simply means you stop turning every unknown into suffering. It means you let the present moment breathe a little. It means you stop making fear the interpreter of everything. This shift changes your relationship with time as well. Force lives in urgency. Force says, if it is not happening now, something is wrong. Faith lives in trust. Faith says what is real does not need panic to arrive. What is meant for me will not be lost because I chose peace today. That is a life-changing belief. It lets the heart rest. It lets the body soften. It lets the mind come back to what is in front of it instead of always running into the future. This is how presence begins. This is how receiving becomes possible. Not by controlling time, but by trusting that goodness can still come in its right moment. The shift from force to faith also changes your inner language. Instead of saying, I have to make this happen, you begin to say, I am open to what is unfolding. Instead of saying, nothing is working, you begin to say, something may be moving that I cannot fully see yet. Instead of saying, I am running out of time, you begin to say, I trust that life knows how to guide me. Instead of saying, I must chase what I want, you begin to say, I am making room to receive what is meant for me. These are not just nicer words. They are new instructions for the mind, the body, and the spirit. And the more you repeat them, the more your whole being begins to shift. You begin to feel that peace is not something weak people choose because they have given up. Peace is something wise people choose because they know fear is not a good guide. trust becomes stronger. The heart becomes more stable. The need to force everything begins to loosen. And suddenly, what once felt impossible starts to feel more natural. You are no longer trying to win life over. You are learning to walk with it. You are learning to listen. You are learning to receive. This does not happen in one perfect moment. It happens in many small moments, one breath instead of one panic, one kind thought instead of one harsh one pause instead of one push, one act of trust instead of one act of fear. These small moments matter. They are how the new way is built. They are how faith becomes lived, not just admired. They are how a person slowly leaves the old world of forcing and enters a new world of openness. If you are in that shift right now, be gentle with yourself. You do not need to become perfectly trusting overnight. You do not need to silence every fearful thought at once. You do not need to prove your faith through performance. You simply need to keep returning to breath, returning to peace, returning to the truth that you are not being asked to carry everything through strain, returning to the truth that life may meet you more easily when you stop fighting it, returning to the truth that good things do not always come through chase. Many times they come through surrender, softness, and quiet trust. So let this be your turning point. Let this be where the old pressure starts to loosen. Let this be where the heart begins to understand that force is not the only path. Let this be where you say, I do not need to fight so hard to deserve what is good. I do not need to carry my future in fear. I do not need to rush what life is still preparing. I can trust more. I can open more. I can receive more. That is the shift. That is the healing. That is where faith begins. Imagine that your life is a river, wide and calm, moving with quiet wisdom through a beautiful land. The water does not rush because it is afraid. It does not stop because it doubts itself. It does not force every turn. It flows. It moves around rocks. It bends when it needs to bend. It carries what belongs within it. And deep down, it trusts where it is going, even when the path curves out of sight. This river is the perfect image for receiving, because receiving is not about standing stiff and afraid at the edge of life. Receiving is about stepping into the flow and trusting that you do not have to control every current in order to be carried. So many people live as if they are trying to swim upstream all day long. They push and strain and fight against the current. They tell themselves that if they relax for even a second, they will be swept away. So they keep kicking, keep forcing, keep exhausting themselves. They are trying so hard to get somewhere that they forget to ask whether they are moving with life or against it. This is what chasing feels like. It feels like fighting the river. It feels like trying to force direction through fear. It feels like believing that if you are not struggling, you are failing. But the river does not respond well to struggle. It responds to flow. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of that river. In your hands, You are carrying stones. Each stone is something you have been holding. One stone is worry. Another is control. Another is fear that you are behind. Another is the pain of disappointment. Another is the belief that if you do not keep forcing, nothing good will happen. These stones are heavy. You have carried them for a long time. You may have become so used to their weight that you almost forgot they were there. But your body remembers. Your heart remembers. Your breath remembers. You have been carrying too much. The Iver is in front of you now, and it is inviting you to do something simple and sacred. It is inviting you to place those stones down. Not all at once, not with pressure, not perfectly. Just one by one. You take the first stone and place it into the water. It sinks and disappears beneath the surface. You take the next and release it too. The water does not reject it. It does not punish you for carrying it. It simply takes it. It simply keeps flowing. That is what life does when you stop gripping so tightly. It begins to carry what you no longer need to hold alone. There is such a deep truth in this image. The stones are not bad. They are just burdens that were never meant to stay in your hands forever. Worry was never meant to become your identity. Fear was never meant to become your guide. Control was never meant to become your peace. They may have helped you feel protected at one time, but now they are weighing you down. The river shows you another way. It shows you that release is possible. It shows you that there is a movement in life greater than your fear. It shows you that you do not need to drag every burden forward with you. And as you release those stones, something begins to change in your body. Your hands feel lighter. Your shoulders begin to drop. Your chest opens a little. Your breath becomes easier. This is what happens when you stop chasing and start receiving. It is not only a mental change, it is physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual. The whole being feels the difference between gripping and letting go. The whole being knows when the pressure is leaving. The whole being responds when trust begins to enter. Now imagine stepping into the river. The water is warm, soft, and full of light. It rises gently around your feet, then your legs, then your whole body. But you do not panic. You do not resist. You do not fight it. You let it hold you. You let it carry you. You realize you do not have to control the entire river. You do not have to know every turn ahead. You do not even have to see the destination clearly right now. You only need to trust that the river knows how to move. You only need to trust that you are safe enough to stop fighting. This is such a powerful image because it speaks to something the heart already knows. Life moves. It has always moved. It moved before you were born, and it will move long after your fear has passed. The sunrise comes. The seasons change. The breath enters and leaves your body. The heart beats without your command. There is already a great flow in existence. And when you chase too hard, you often move against that flow. But when you begin to receive, you come back into harmony with it. You remember that life has an intelligence deeper than panic. The river also teaches another truth. You do not need to force every turn. A river does not break itself trying to go in a straight line. It turns where it must turn. It slows where it must slow. It deepens where it must deepen. It widens where it must widen. That is how life works too. Not everything is meant to happen in a straight line. Not every delay is a mistake. And at every bend means you are lost. Sometimes the path curves because it is leading you somewhere more true than the place your fear was trying to reach. Sometimes the slowing is sacred. Sometimes the redirection is grace. When people are chasing, they hate the bends. They hate the pauses. They hate the unknown parts. They want everything to move quickly and clearly. They want certainty. They want control. But the river teaches patience. It teaches surrender. It teaches trust in motion. It teaches that movement can still be happening even when progress does not look the way you expected. It teaches that not all flow is fast and not all delay is loss. This wisdom is gentle, but it heals a lot of fear. You can also imagine the river as a symbol of all the good trying to reach you. Love flowing toward you, peace flowing toward you, healing flowing toward you, clarity flowing toward you, support flowing toward you. But if you are standing on the bank with your arms crossed, afraid of the water, afraid of the unknown, afraid to get in, then you cannot feel that flow. The river is still there, but you have not yet entered it. That is what receiving means. It means stepping in. It means letting yourself be touched by what you have spent so long trying to control from a distance. This does not mean you lose yourself in the river. It means you stop fighting what is meant to carry you. That is a very different thing. Many people fear surrender because they think it means weakness. They think it means losing power, becoming passive, giving up responsibility. But true surrender is not collapse. True surrender is trust. It is saying, I no longer need to fight the current of life every second. I no longer need to control what is already moving. I am willing to be carried by something wiser than my fear. That is strength. Quiet strength. Deep strength. Healing strength. The river image also helps us understand why force feels so exhausting. Imagine trying to hold back a river with your bare hands. Imagine trying to stand in the middle of that current and tell it where it is allowed to go. Imagine trying to stop every movement you do not understand. Of course you would become tired. Of course you would feel overwhelmed. That is what so many people are doing emotionally. They are trying to control a life that was never meant to be held that way. They are trying to stop the natural movement of things. They are trying to demand certainty from a world built on living flow. No wonder they feel worn down. Now imagine a different picture. Imagine yourself floating instead of fighting. Imagine your body relaxing into the current. Imagine your heart saying, I trust this moment. I trust that I do not need to know everything right now. I trust that what belongs to me can stay with me. I trust that what is leaving is making room. I trust that I am being carried, not abandoned. Feel how different that is. Feel how your whole inner world would change if you met life that way. This is the power of metaphor. It lets the soul understand in one image what the mind has struggled to learn in 1,000 thoughts. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this image is that the river never asks you to be perfect before you enter. It does not say, come back once you have healed everything. It does not say, come back once you stop doubting. It does not say, come back once you are stronger. It simply flows. It simply invites. It simply waits for your willingness. In the same way, life does not always require perfection before it offers grace. It often only asks for openness. It often only asks for one brave step out of fear and into trust. So hold this image close. When your mind begins to chase again, remember the river. When your body begins to tighten with control, remember the river. When fear tells you to force what is not yet ready, remember the river. Let it remind you that not everything good needs to be wrestled into place. Let it remind you that the flow of life is real. Let it remind you that you can put some of the stones down. Let it remind you that you are allowed to step into a softer way of living. And if you need a simple truth to hold inside this image, let it be this. I do not need to fight the river to reach what is meant for me. Say that gently in your heart. I do not need to fight the river to reach what is meant for me. I can flow. I can trust. I can release. I can receive. The river knows how to move. Life knows how to move. And as you stop chasing and begin receiving, you start to remember that you were never meant to carry it all alone. Take a slow breath and let yourself arrive here fully. Not in tomorrow, not in the next problem, not in the next answer you think you need, but here. This moment is enough to begin. You do not need to force yourself into peace. You do not need to pretend everything feels easy. You only need to be willing to soften a little. That is all. Just a little softness. Just a little room inside your chest. Just a little less pressure in your thoughts. Just a little less weight on your heart. That is where release begins. Notice where you have been holding on. Maybe it is in your shoulders, where the strain of always trying to stay strong has become normal. Maybe it is in your chest, where hope and fear have been pressing against each other for too long. Maybe it is in your stomach, where worry has been sitting quietly, asking questions with no clear answers. Maybe it is in your jaw, your breath, your thoughts, or the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. You may not even have words for all of it, but your body knows. Your body has been carrying the tension of chasing. Your body has been holding the need to get somewhere, fix something, prove something, make something happen. And now for this moment, your body is being invited to stop. Breathe in slowly, and as you exhale, Imagine that all the effort you have been holding begins to loosen. Not because you no longer care, but because you are no longer asking your nervous system to carry your whole life through force. Let the breath be the first sign that you are allowed to let go. Inhale gently, exhale fully. Again, inhale peace, exhale pressure. Inhale softness, exhale control. Inhale trust. Exhale the need to chase. The more you breathe this way, the more the body begins to understand that it is safe to come out of struggle for a while. Now imagine that in front of you is an open space filled with soft golden light. It is calm there, quiet there, warm there. Nothing in that space is rushing you. Nothing is asking you to perform. Nothing is demanding an answer from you right this second. It is simply a place of peace, a place where you can set down what has become too heavy. In your hands are all the invisible things you have been carrying, the pressure to make life work on your timeline, the fear that you may miss your chance, the sadness of waiting, the tiredness of trying so hard, the old habit of believing that goodness only comes through struggle. All of it is there. All of it has weight. You do not have to throw it away with anger. You do not have to fight it. You do not have to judge yourself for carrying it. You only have to place it down gently, one burden at a time. Imagine yourself setting that pressure into the golden light. Imagine placing the fear there too. Imagine laying down the need to have everything figured out. Imagine releasing the old sentence that says, "If I do not chase, nothing good will come." Watch each burden enter the light and begin to soften. It does not disappear in a harsh way. It simply dissolves. It is met with peace. It is met with kindness. It is met with something greater than your fear. Now feel your hands after setting those burdens down. Feel how much lighter they are. Feel how much space there is when you are no longer gripping so tightly. This is important because receiving begins with empty hands. Not empty in a painful way, but open in a sacred way. Open enough to hold what life is trying to give. Open enough to welcome peace. Open enough to welcome support. Open enough to welcome the idea that you do not need to chase what belongs to you. Open enough to believe that what is yours can reach you in ways you cannot yet fully see. As you stand in this golden space, place one hand over your heart. Feel the steady beat there. It has carried you through so much. Even on the days when you felt tired, it kept going. Even when your mind was restless, your heart stayed faithful. Even when life felt uncertain, the breath kept moving in and out of your body. There is already a quiet intelligence inside you. There is already a rhythm of life within you that knows how to continue. You do not have to create that rhythm. You only have to stop fighting it. And so, with your hand on your heart, let yourself whisper inside, I release the need to force. I release the need to chase. I am safe to receive. Say it slowly in the silence of your own being. I release the need to force. I release the need to chase. I am safe to receive. Feel the truth of those words as best you can. You do not need to believe them perfectly for them to begin working in you. You only need to let them enter. You only need to let them be possible. Every time you repeat them, you teach your body a way of being. Every time you repeat them, you make the path softer inside yourself. Every time you repeat them, you stop giving fear the only microphone. Now imagine that the golden light begins to move through your body. It touches your forehead and softens the overthinking. It touches your eyes and eases the need to search so hard. It moves through your jaw and loosens the words you have not needed to carry. It flows down into your throat and clears the pressure to explain everything. It enters your chest and gives your heart more room. It settles into your stomach and quiets the worry there. It moves through your shoulders and lifts the invisible loads you have been carrying. It flows down your arms, into your hands, through your legs, all the way to your feet, grounding you in peace. Stay here for a moment. Let the light do its work. Let the breath do its work. Let the quiet do its work. There is nothing you need to prove in this moment. There is nothing you need to solve before you are allowed to rest inside yourself. You are not behind in this moment. You are not failing in this moment. You are simply here, and being here with honesty is enough. Sometimes healing is not dramatic. Sometimes healing is this: a slower breath, a softer chest, a new sentence in the heart, a little less control, a little more trust, a little more room for good to find you. And if any part of you is still afraid to let go, be gentle with that part too. Do not shame it. It learned to hold on for a reason. It learned to stay tense because at some point it thought that was the only way to stay safe. Thank it for trying to protect you, and then tell it softly, we are learning another way now. We are learning that peace can protect us too. We are learning that trust can guide us too. We are learning that not every good thing has to be chased. We are learning that opening is safe. That is how true release happens. Not through force, but through compassion. So rest here a little longer in this inner release. Let the breath continue. Let the body soften. Let the golden light remind you that you do not have to carry your life with clenched hands. Let the heart hear a new truth. Good things are not always found by running harder. Sometimes they find their way to you when you finally become still enough, soft enough, open enough to receive them. Let that truth settle deeply. Let it become part of your inner ground. Let it stay with you as a quiet blessing. I am open. I am safe. I am ready to receive. When a person truly begins to stop chasing and starts receiving, the first changes are often invisible to the outside world, but they are deeply felt on the inside. The chest does not feel as tight. The mind does not race the same way. The body no longer feels like it is preparing for battle every minute. There is a little more room between one fearful thought and the next. There is a little more silence between the questions. There is a little more gentleness in the way the heart holds the unknown. These changes may seem small, but they are not small at all. They are the beginning of a new inner life. One of the first things that changes inside is the relationship with time. When someone is chasing, time always feels like an enemy. Every delay feels personal. Every pause feels dangerous. Every unanswered question feels like proof that something is wrong. But when receiving begins, time softens. It no longer feels like something that is always running away from you. It begins to feel more like space. Space for life to work. Space for things to align. Space for your own heart to become strong enough to hold what it has been asking for. This change alone can bring so much peace. Because when time stops being an enemy, the soul can breathe again. Another change is that the mind begins to trust without needing so many answers all at once. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop making certainty the condition for peace. You begin to understand that peace can exist while life is still unfolding. You begin to understand that not knowing everything is not the same as being lost. You begin to understand that uncertainty does not have to create panic every time it appears. This is one of the quiet miracles of receiving. The mind becomes less desperate. It becomes less crowded. It becomes more willing to let life reveal itself step by step instead of demanding the whole path in one moment. The body changes too. A body that has lived in chase is often tired in ways that rest alone cannot fix. It is tired from holding tension, tired from carrying fear, tired from preparing for disappointment before it even arrives, tired from being told every day that more effort, more control, more pressure are the only ways to stay safe. But when receiving begins, the body gets a new message. The message is this: you do not have to stay in emergency mode. You do not have to remain so guarded. You do not have to earn every peaceful breath. This message begins to reach the nervous system, and slowly the body starts to believe it. That belief shows up in simple ways. The shoulders relax more easily. Sleep feels deeper. The breath moves lower in the body. The jaw softens. The stomach no longer carries quite as much worry. The heart feels less rushed. None of these changes mean life has become perfect. They simply mean your inner world is no longer fighting itself every moment. That is what receiving mode feels like. It feels like the end of constant inner resistance. It feels like the beginning of living with your own life instead of always running after it. Another beautiful change that happens inside is that you begin to notice support more easily. When you are stuck in chase, support can be hard to see because the mind is too focused on what is missing. It keeps scanning for what has not happened yet, what still needs fixing, what is uncertain, what is delayed. But when receiving begins, perception changes. You begin to notice the quiet ways life is already helping you. You notice a kind word. You notice a moment of timing that felt just right. You notice a conversation that brings clarity. You notice a sense of calm where panic used to be. You notice that you are not as alone as fear made you believe. This does not happen because life suddenly starts caring. It happens because the heart becomes open enough to feel what was always there. That is one of the deepest truths of receiving. So much good may already be near, but the closed heart cannot fully notice it. The tense mind cannot fully trust it. The fearful body cannot fully hold it. When you open, the world begins to look different, not only because life is changing, but because you are. Your vision becomes softer. Your energy becomes clearer. Your whole being becomes more available to grace. You also become less reactive. This is a powerful change. When a person is in chase mode, every little thing can feel urgent. A delayed message becomes a whole story. A closed door becomes a sign of failure. A hard day becomes proof that all is going wrong. But when receiving begins, there is more steadiness inside. You still feel things, but you do not collapse into every moment. You still care, but you do not turn every challenge into doom. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to breathe before deciding what something means. You begin to trust that one difficult moment does not define the whole path. This steadiness is a form of inner wealth. It protects peace. It protects clarity. It protects your heart from being thrown around by every passing fear. There is also a new kind of self-respect that grows inside receiving mode. When you stop chasing from fear, you begin to honor your own energy more deeply. You stop pouring yourself into things that only drain you. You stop begging life to validate your worth. You stop thinking you must prove your value through exhaustion. You begin to understand that your peace is not cheap. Your energy is not endless. Your heart deserves tenderness. This self-respect changes how you speak, how you choose, how you wait, how you love, and what you allow. It becomes easier to step back from what is not aligned. It becomes easier to trust that what is meant for you does not require you to abandon yourself. Receiving mode also creates more room for intuition. Chase is loud. Fear is loud. Overthinking is loud. But intuition speaks more quietly. It often arrives as a soft knowing, a simple feeling, a gentle nudge, a calm sense of direction. When your inner world is full of strain, it is hard to hear that voice. But when you stop chasing, when you begin to soften and trust more deeply, intuition becomes clearer. You begin to feel what is right for you with less confusion. You begin to notice when something drains you and when something opens you. You begin to sense what is aligned, what is not, where peace is, and where pressure is pretending to be purpose. Another thing that changes inside is your relationship with yourself. This may be one of the most important changes of all. In chase mode, people are often hard on themselves. They speak in pressure. They measure their worth by outcomes. They punish themselves for not being farther along. They live with a constant feeling of not enough. But when receiving begins, the relationship softens. So you start treating yourself less like a machine and more like a living soul. You stop demanding perfection. You stop speaking to yourself only in commands. You start listening. You start giving yourself what you have long needed from the outside: patience, compassion, permission to breathe, permission to be in process. And from that softer relationship with yourself, something beautiful grows. Hope becomes cleaner. It is no longer mixed with desperation. Desire becomes lighter. It is no longer tied to panic. You can still want more for your life, but now you want it from a place of openness instead of fear. That is a sacred shift. It means your dreams no longer cost you your peace. It means your future no longer requires you to abandon the present. It means what you long for can live in your heart without turning into pressure. You can hold your vision gently. You can stay open without becoming frantic. You can trust the path without needing to chase every inch of it. Perhaps one of the most healing changes in receiving mode is that gratitude begins to come more naturally, not forced gratitude, not pretending everything is perfect. Real gratitude, the kind that rises when you notice that your breath feels calmer, the kind that appears when you realize you are not carrying as much fear as you were before, the kind that opens when you see that life is still here, still moving, still giving you chances to begin again. Gratitude grows because the heart is no longer closed. Gratitude grows because the mind is no longer only scanning for lack. Gratitude grows because you begin to feel life instead of only managing it. And then, quietly, good things begin to feel more natural. Not because you become passive, but because you stop standing in your own doorway with fear. Support feels easier to receive. Rest feels less guilty. Joy feels less suspicious. Help feels less uncomfortable. Love feels less impossible. Peace feels less temporary. You start to realize that receiving was never about becoming someone else. It was about removing what fear had piled up around your heart. It was about returning to your natural openness. It was about letting life touch you again without making you fight for every drop of goodness. This inner change matters because outer life always grows from inner ground. If the inner ground is fear, everything will feel harder to trust. If the inner ground is pressure, everything will feel heavy. But if the inner ground becomes peace, trust, openness, and self-respect, then what grows from that ground changes too. Choices become clearer. Relationships become healthier. Timing becomes easier to accept. Rest becomes deeper. Guidance becomes easier to hear. Even your prayers feel different because they are no longer only cries of desperation. They become invitations. They become openings. They become space where grace can enter. So if you want to know what changes inside when you stop chasing and start receiving, it is this. Everything becomes softer, truer, steadier, and more alive. The mind becomes less noisy. The body becomes less tense. The heart becomes less afraid. Your energy becomes less desperate and more magnetic. Your spirit becomes more able to trust. And in that new inner state, life begins to meet you differently. Because you are no longer only asking for good things with your words. You are becoming someone who can finally hold them. There is something very powerful about speaking simple truth into a life that has been shaped by fear. Not complicated truth, not big words, not hard ideas. Just clear, loving truth repeated enough times that the mind begins to listen, the body begins to soften, and the heart begins to believe that another way is possible. This is why affirmations matter. They are not magic words said without feeling. They are gentle instructions that help guide your inner world away from panic and back toward peace. They help break the old habit of speaking lack, fear, pressure, and doubt over your own life every day. Many people do not realize how often they affirm what they do not want. They say things like, "Nothing works out for me. I am always behind. I never get what I need. I have to force everything. I cannot relax yet. Something will go wrong." These phrases may sound normal because they have been repeated so many times, but they shape the atmosphere of the heart. The mind hears them. The body hears them. The nervous system hears them. Over time, these thoughts begin to feel like truth, not because they are true, but because they are familiar. That is why a new language is needed. A softer language, a truer language, a language that teaches the soul how to receive. The affirmations for this journey must be simple and easy to feel. They should not sound far away from your life. They should sound like doors opening inside your own heart. One of the most important ones is this: good things find their way to me. Let that sentence settle. It is calm. It is clear. It does not demand. It does not beg. It simply opens. Good things find their way to me. You can repeat it slowly when fear begins to rise. You can repeat it when you are tempted to chase. You can repeat it when the mind begins to say you are forgotten. Let it become a new place to stand. Another powerful affirmation is this: I am open to receive. This sentence is small, but it carries so much healing. It tells the heart that it no longer has to stay closed. It tells the body that it no longer has to block every blessing before it arrives. It tells the mind that peace is allowed to enter. I am open to receive. Say it when something kind happens and you feel yourself pulling away. Say it when help is offered and guilt appears. Say it when love comes near and fear tries to make you doubt it. I am open to receive. These words remind the whole being that receiving is safe. A third affirmation that matters deeply is this: I trust life to support me. This one is especially important for people who have spent years feeling like they have to do everything alone. The old pattern says if I do not hold it all together, everything will collapse. But this new truth says something different. It says support exists. It says guidance exists. It says I am not abandoned in my own life. I trust life to support me. Even if you only half believe it at first, keep saying it. Let it plant itself. Let it loosen the old fear. Let it teach your heart that help can exist without you forcing every detail. You can also use this affirmation. What is meant for me can find me. This one is powerful because it softens the panic around timing. It reminds you that you do not have to chase your destiny in fear. It reminds you that your path is not so fragile that it disappears the moment you choose peace. It reminds you that life can still reach you. What is meant for me can find me. Say it in waiting seasons. Say it in uncertain moments. Say it when you feel pressure to make everything happen right now. Let it become a gentle answer to inner urgency. Another healing affirmation is this: I release the need to control everything. This is important because so much chasing is really control wearing the clothes of fear. It says if I can predict everything, maybe I can stay safe. But peace rarely grows in a heart that is always gripping. This affirmation creates room. I release the need to control everything. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop asking control to give you a peace it never could. Say this one with a deep breath. Let the exhale carry the tension. Let the body hear that it is not required to manage the whole universe today. And perhaps this affirmation too: I am safe to soften. Many people need exactly that truth, not just mentally, but physically. They need to feel that softening is not the same as danger. They need to know that peace is not weakness. They need to know that rest is not failure. I am safe to soften. This can be a beautiful phrase to repeat at night, before sleep, after a difficult day, or any time you feel yourself hardening in fear. It is like a hand on the heart. It is like a door opening where there used to be tension. Now, affirmations become even more powerful when joined with a very simple spiritual practice. It does not need to be long. It does not need to be perfect. In fact, the simpler it is, the more likely you are to live it. A gentle daily practice helps move these truths from words into experience. It helps the mind stop rushing back into old patterns. It helps the body remember a new feeling. One simple practice is this: each morning, before touching your phone, before thinking about all you need to do, place one hand over your heart and take 3 slow breaths. On the first breath, say silently, "Good things find their way to me." On the second breath, say, "I am open to receive." On the third breath, say, "I trust life to support me." Then sit for one quiet moment and let those words settle into your body. That is all. It may take less than 1 minute, but it changes the direction of the day. It begins the morning not from chase, but from receiving. It begins the morning not from pressure, but from presence. It tells the mind and body, this is the energy we are choosing now. You can also create a small evening practice. At the end of the day, before sleep, instead of going over every mistake, every delay, everything you wish had gone differently, pause and speak 1 or 2 healing truths into the night. Place your hand on your chest and say, I release the day with peace. What is meant for me can find me. I am safe to rest. This matters because the thoughts you carry into sleep often continue shaping your inner world through the night. Let the last words of the day be kind. Let the last thoughts of the day be open. Let your sleep become a place where receiving begins more deeply. Another simple spiritual practice is to pause whenever you notice yourself slipping into chase mode. Maybe your thoughts begin racing. Maybe your chest tightens. Maybe you start thinking, I need to make this happen right now. In that moment, do not shame yourself. Just pause. Take one slow breath and ask, am I chasing right now, or am I receiving? That one question can shift everything. Because the moment you become aware, you regain choice. The moment you notice, you can soften. The moment you soften, you can choose a new sentence. Maybe it is, I do not need to force this. Maybe it is, I trust the timing of my life. Maybe it is, peace first. You can also write one affirmation somewhere you will see it every day, on your mirror, on your phone, on a small note near your bed. Let it be simple. Let it be one truth your heart most needs right now. Perhaps it is good things find their way to me. Perhaps it is I am open to receive. Perhaps it is I trust life to support me. Repetition matters. Not because you are trying to force belief, but because you are gently building a new path in the mind. Every time your eyes see those words, it becomes easier to return to them. Every time you repeat them, the old fearful story becomes a little weaker. What matters most is not the number of affirmations. It is the feeling they create inside you. You do not need dozens. You need a few honest ones that you can live with. A few sentences that feel like peace. A few sentences that call your energy back from panic. A few sentences that open your heart to receiving. Over time, these words begin to replace the old inner pressure. They begin to shape a new atmosphere within you. An atmosphere where good can land. An atmosphere where help can be felt. An atmosphere where trust can grow. So let these affirmations become part of your path now. Good things find their way to me. I am open to receive. I trust life to support me. What is meant for me can find me. I release the need to control everything. I am safe to soften. These are not just lines. They are invitations. They are reminders. They are gentle truths that help you return to yourself again and again. And through them, through this simple daily practice of breath, awareness, and kind repetition, you begin to build a life that no longer lives only in chase. You begin to build a life that knows how to receive. If your heart has been tired, let it hear something healing now. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not too late for good things. You are not being punished because life has felt slow. You are not failing because you are still learning how to trust. You are not less worthy because you have been afraid. You are not cut off from peace because your mind has been restless. You are not wrong for wanting ease, love, support, healing, clarity, and rest. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that the soul remembers what it was made for. For too long, many people have lived as if they must carry everything alone. They have lived as if pressure is normal, as if struggle is proof of worth, as if the heart must stay tense in order to stay safe. But that is not the only way to live. There is another way, a softer way, a truer way, a way where you still care deeply, but you no longer destroy your peace while waiting. A way where you still move forward, but you do not abandon yourself in the process. A way where you stop asking fear to lead you and begin letting trust have a voice. You may still have moments when the old urge to chase returns. You may still have days when your mind wants to force answers, when your body tightens, when your heart feels afraid again. That does not mean you are going backward. That does not mean the truth has left you. It only means you are human. It only means you are practicing a new way. The important thing is not that fear never appears. The important thing is that it no longer gets to decide everything. The important thing is that now you know you can return. You can return to breath. You can return to softness. You can return to trust. You can return to the truth that what is meant for you does not need to be chased in panic. Remember this gently. The heart learns by repetition. Peace grows by practice. Trust deepens by returning again and again, even after fear has spoken. So do not judge yourself if you need to hear these truths many times. That is part of healing. The old pressure was repeated many times too. The old fear had many chances to shape your thoughts. Now love gets its turn. Now peace gets its turn. Now truth gets its turn. Now your life begins to hear a different message. You do not have to force everything. You do not have to live in constant chase. You are allowed to receive. There is something beautiful that begins to happen when a person truly believes that. They stop looking at life as if goodness is always somewhere else. They stop treating the present moment like a problem they must rush through. They begin to notice that support is already around them. They begin to see that some things are already healing. They begin to feel that peace can enter before every question is answered. They begin to trust that life is not only testing them, but also guiding them. And from that place, hope becomes lighter. Faith becomes real. The future no longer feels like something to fear in the same way. If you have been waiting for a sign that you can stop holding yourself so hard, let this be that sign. If you have been waiting for permission to soften, let this be that permission. If you have been waiting for a reminder that God can still find you, let this be that reminder. You do not need to be perfect to receive. You do not need to know everything to be supported. You do not need to heal every fear before peace can begin touching your life. You only need to open a little more than before. You only need to stop closing the door on your own worth. You only need to let the heart breathe. And so, right here, let these final truths rest in you gently. Good things can still find you. Peace can still find you. Love can still find you. Clarity can still find you. Healing can still find you. The right timing can still find you. The next step can still find you. The support you need can still find you. Life is not so small that one hard season can erase all possibility. Grace is not so weak that fear can keep it away forever. What is real, what is aligned, what is meant with love, can still make its way into your life. So if today all you can do is breathe a little slower, let that be enough. If all you can do is loosen your grip a little, let that be enough. If all you can do is repeat one truth and hold it close, let that be enough. Healing does not always begin with huge changes. Many times it begins with one new sentence in the heart, one new way of seeing yourself, one new willingness to trust that life may be kinder than your fear has told you. One new moment where you stop chasing and allow yourself to receive. Let yourself hear this one more time clearly and softly. You are safe to receive. You are worthy of peace. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to trust. You are allowed to stop making struggle your only way. You are allowed to believe that the good you seek is not always far from you. You are allowed to believe that life can meet you with gentleness. You are allowed to open your hands and say, I am ready for what belongs to me. And if your heart needs one last thing to hold, let it be this. Good things always find their way to you when you stop chasing and start receiving. Carry that with you. Carry it into your mornings, into your waiting seasons, into your quiet moments, into the places where fear used to rule. Let it speak over the old pressure. Let it calm the old urgency. Let it become part of the way you live now. Because you are not here to spend your whole life running after what peace would have brought more gently. You are here to open, to trust, to breathe, and to let goodness reach you. So let this be the turning point where you stop measuring your life only by how hard you push and start feeling the quiet power of trust. Let this be the moment when the heart understands that not everything beautiful must be chased. Some things come when you soften. Some things come when you release control. Some things come when you stop asking fear to guide your path. Some things come when you become open enough to receive what has been trying to find you all along. From this moment on, let peace come first. Let breath come first. Let trust come first. Let your worth be steady even while life is still unfolding. Let your heart stay open even when the full picture is not yet clear. Let your spirit remember that you are supported, guided, and never outside the reach of grace. Good things are still moving. Good things are still possible. Good things are still making their way toward you. And as you go forward, carry this truth like a quiet light within you. I do not need to chase what belongs to me. I am open to receive. I trust life to support me. Good things always find their way to me.